Among the handful of games in NBA history that could make or break a player's legacy, one stands head and shoulders above the rest. Game 6 of the 2012 Eastern Conference Finals, Miami at Boston. Facing elimination down 3-2, it's not an exaggeration to say that the outcome of this game could have changed the entire course of NBA history. In some other timeline, this game destroyed LeBron's legacy. In this timeline, the Celtics found out that if you come at the king, you best not miss. Let's go back to the beginning. The Boston Celtics have long been a thorn in LeBron's side, knocking him and the Cavs out of the playoffs twice in 3 years. Both times in the second round, once during their championship run in 2008 and once in 2010. LeBron was widely considered the best player in the NBA, but a big four of Rajon Rondo, Ray Allen, Paul Pierce, and Kevin Garnett was too much. The limited Cavs roster couldn't compete, and the NBA held its breath in the summer of 2010, waiting to hear the Kings' free agency decision. ESPN got the exclusive rights to broadcast the decision. No other TV special in history had caused so much emotional damage to the state of Ohio once LeBron had announced that he was taking his talents to South Beach.
In this fall, I'm going to take my talents to South Beach.
Bonfires made of his jerseys burned long into the night, and the whole TV special was widely regarded as a bad move. It did raise about $2.5 million for charity, but fans couldn't get over the show massaging LeBron's ego and the fact that a super team was now formed in Miami. If we look past the awful optics, the decision makes sense. Neither the Raptors or the Cavs could have attracted and paid for enough firepower around their stars to conquer the East, so the three stars joined forces in Miami. Bosh, Wade, and James were a formidable trio that first came together on Team USA, where the seeds of the eventual Big Three first formed. They structured their contracts so they could all hit free agency together, and Pat Riley was savvy enough to facilitate their union. The star power was off the charts. Guys like Udonis Haslem, Mike Bibby, and sharpshooter Mike Miller formed the backbone of a decent supporting cast. The only seemingly weak point was coaching. Pat Riley, a legendary coach with championship experience, moved to the executive office, and in his place came Eric Spoelstra. Mind you, this isn't the miracle worker we know today. Back then, Spoelstra was still cutting his teeth, and now he had the weight of a championship or bust expectations put on his shoulders. After a rocky 9-8 start to the season, LeBron marched into Riley's office and demanded that Spo be fired and that Riley take over as the coach. In true Godfather fashion, Riley shut both demands down. This seems to have refocused the team, and they eventually made the finals that year. It should have been their first championship, and it was, if by them we mean Dirk's Mavs.
For the first time in franchise history, the Dallas Mavericks have won the NBA championship.
LeBron averaged just 17.8 points per game for the series, which was the fewest of the big three, on just 47.8% from the field and 32% from three. The Heat were already hated across the NBA landscape, and the Mavs were the perfect lovable underdog. LeBron's underperforming in the finals was the perfect catalyst for a media frenzy. The whole not one, not two, not three thing wasn't looking so hot after the 2011 finals, and if you were a LeBron hater back then, all your Christmases had come at once.
He is no longer an A+ scorer and an A+ defender.
There weren't nearly as many offseason roster moves as you're probably used to from modern LeBron teams. The only notable addition was Shane Battier, but the offseason was pretty significant because of the crumbling CBA negotiations between the Players Association and the owners. That whole story is a video of its own, but the important thing is that the season didn't start until late December because of the lockout. There were no training camps and no preseason games for teams to find their footing. Since every team was in the same boat, there was no reduction in pressure or expectations on LeBron and the Heat. The Sharks were circling and just waiting to strike at the first sign of weakness. Hell, some of the more radical takes out there were calling for the team to break up the Big Three since it was, quote, clearly a failure. LeBron had embraced the villain label in his first season with the Heat, but the humbling ending to that season caused a shift in his mentality. He was back to his usual self, and he took home the MVP award in his second Heat season on 27, 8, and 6 averages. The Heat entered the playoffs as the number 2 seed with a 46-20 record. Very cool, but nobody cared for the regular season. The playoffs are the proving ground of legacies, and LeBron's was in danger. The Heat easily dispatched the Knicks 4-1 to start things off. Round 2 was set for a clash with the Pacers. You might remember the PG-13 led Pacers as a major problem for the Heat during the early 2010s, but this Pacers squad wasn't there yet. Although their chances were boosted by Chris Bosh missing the entire series after suffering an abdominal strain in Game 1, they went down 4-2 with LeBron averaging 30 points per game. This was kind of a blessing in disguise for LeBron, who had taken his game to new heights out of necessity, but the team was weaker overall without their starting center. The Eastern Conference Finals featured a familiar foe, the Boston Celtics. The Pacers were still a young team on the rise, and the Knicks were the Knicks. But Boston was a true contender. Despite Miami giving them a gentleman's sweep the year before and having home field advantage once again, plenty of folks doubted that LeBron could overcome them this time around. The Heat defended home court in the first 2 games, but so did Boston once the series shifted. The talking heads were touting Game 5 as a must-win for both teams, and with good reason. Teams that win Game 5 of a tied series statistically have about an 82% chance of winning the series. They say that a series only properly starts when someone wins a game on the road. Well, the Celtics made it a series after Game 5, despite Bosh returning from injury after missing the first 4 games. James and Wade were their usual dominant selves, combining for 57 points on decent percentages. The supporting cast apparently didn't get the memo about this game being kind of important since none of them scored in double digits. Facing elimination on the road in Boston of all places was a true nightmare scenario for anyone, especially LeBron. Boston fans hated him and the Heat with a burning passion of 1,000 suns. The doubters felt vindicated and the media airwaves were thick with takes of how we were staring at the imminent death of LeBron's legacy.
He doesn't have a big clutch gene. The complete and utter disappearance of LeBron James.
Celtics players were convinced that they had broken LeBron, that delivering the killing blow at home was just a formality, a show they would put on for a crowd eager to see blood, just like in ancient Roman times. Even the Heat players were feeling the pressure. There was a big concern among the Heat stars that Pat Riley would break up the team if they fell short of the championship once again. LeBron was very much aware that regardless of how well he performed, a loss in Boston would be a blow his legacy could never recover from. With all that weighing on him, he stepped on the court for Game 6. By the end of this game, one way or another, NBA history would be written. Before the game started, LeBron had a look in his eye that would end up becoming a part of NBA lore. It didn't take long for the Celtics to start understanding what that look meant. The player on the court was not a broken LeBron, but a pure force of nature that had the Celtics squarely in his sights. His first points came from a blow-by on Pierce and a nasty dunk that Garnett wanted no part of. A long two he hit minutes later confirmed that Paul Pierce was in for a very long night on defense. Ray Allen didn't fare much better on a post-up where James effortlessly lost him and hit a clean jumper over a second defender. Up next was a signature freight train drive that finished with an and one when Greg Stiemsma wasn't quick enough to get out of the way. The free throw was good, and LeBron hit his first 3 on the very next possession, putting the Heat up by double digits for the first time. Michael Pietrus was the next victim of a LeBron post-up, when LBJ hit a tough turnaround shot that Garnett couldn't help on fast enough. James scored 14 points on 6 of 7 shooting, and was enough to make even the most diehard Celtics fans nervous. Unfortunately for them, the show was just getting started. After missing his first shot of the quarter, James quickly got back on track with a short jumper that ripped the net. Another clean turnaround jumper on the very next possession showed that Michael Pietrus wouldn't have it any easier than Pierce for the rest of the night. Pierce checked back in shortly after, but nothing else changed since LeBron welcomed him back with yet another turnaround too. The number of difficult shots that were going down started getting into the Celtics' heads, and frustration started chipping away at defensive discipline. Pierce quickly picked up his second and third fouls on LeBron, sending him back to the bench. James could have thrown up a washing machine at this point and it would have swished clean through the basket. He was in the zone, and it was apparent to everyone. He put the exclamation point on the first half when he followed up a Chris Bosh miss with a vicious putback dunk and followed that up with yet another long 2 over Pietrus. Another 6 of 7 quarter and a 30-point first half. Down 13 and without answers, the Celtics had one strategy left at their disposal for the second half: pray for a miracle. Any hopes for a miracle started fading pretty soon, since James opened his scoring in the second half with a running fadeaway bank shot that anyone else would have a hard time making. Rondo tried guarding James on one third quarter possession only to quickly find out that he was on the receiving end of a huge mismatch. One floater later, it was 34 for the King. His next 2 field goals both came over Pietrus. First a long 2 and then a disrespectful in-your-face 3 that swished clean through. The announcers could only say what everyone was seeing. Quote, "That's been going in all night long."
A fan of how they're playing right now offensively. James for 3, does it again, 39 points. And Miami back up by 13.
Even the Heat players were feeling a weird mix of disbelief and comfort. They had never seen anyone completely take over a game like this, but they felt comfort in the fact that the guy responsible for it was on their side. That carry job James had been doing so far was the only thing keeping Miami in front, since the rest of the team was shooting tour dates. Had anyone else properly shown up for work, Miami would have easily been up 30 at this point. Instead, it was just a 13-point lead late in the third quarter. Rondo didn't even bother putting a hand up on LeBron's final shot of the quarter, despite it being a turnaround 20-footer. Another swish, 41 points. The Celtics tried switching to a zone a couple of times, but nothing was working. D-Wade finally came to life at the start of the fourth quarter, making 4 of his 6 total made field goals in the game. James scored only 2 more times in the fourth, a long 2 over Garnett and a backdoor cut layup. The lead was up to 25. The game was blown wide open by that point, and the Boston crowd was dead silent. The Celtics could only cut the deficit to 19 by the end of the game, and LeBron finished with 45 points, 15 rebounds, and 5 assists on 19 of 26 from the field. It took less than 4 quarters for LeBron to break Boston's spirit and silence anyone who had doubted him. One Boston fan poured beer on LeBron as he was leaving the floor, which besides showing a complete lack of class, all but guaranteed that Boston would get torched in Game 7 in Miami.
I just wanted to try to lead my team the best way I could. Whatever I needed to do out on the floor, I tried to be there for them tonight, and I'm glad we was able to get this win and now, force the Game 7.
With the big 3 locked in and most of the supporting cast shooting lights out, Miami completed the series comeback and booked a final showdown with the Thunder. 5 games later, LeBron was a Finals MVP, lifting his first Larry O'Brien trophy, forever cementing his legacy as an all-time great.
Let the coronation begin! LeBron James has helped crown Miami as champion of the basketball world.
LeBron James is the unanimous choice for the MVP.
I'm at a loss for words. I'm NBA champion. Nobody can ever take that away from me.
With probably more pressure on his shoulders than any player before him had to bear, LeBron rose to the occasion and not only saved his legacy, but made it greater. This was the first of many times when James would show that betting against him wasn't a smart move. The Celtics came at the king and missed, for which they paid the price. Ray Allen left the team in the summer of 2012, effectively closing Boston's championship window for the foreseeable future. The team that had bragged about breaking the king ended up being the one broken.